Your mother has paranoid delusions and refuses to accept help. Those were the words on the screen when the nurse tilted it toward me. I was sitting in the ER in a paper gown, shaking. The nurse's face was kind but decided. I had come for help with dizziness and confusion. What I got was a psychiatric hold. But to understand how I ended up here, I need to go back 2 years. Back to when my son Marcus married Vanessa. I was thrilled when they got engaged. Marcus had been alone too long after his divorce. Vanessa seemed perfect for him. She was a physician's assistant at a family practice. Smart, competent, always put together. At their wedding, she hugged me and said I was the mother she wished she'd had. I cried happy tears. My husband Robert had died 3 years earlier. The loneliness had been crushing. Having Vanessa in the family felt like a gift. She started calling me Mom within weeks. She'd stop by my house with coffee and pastries. We'd sit in my kitchen and talk for hours. She asked about my health, my sleep, my moods. I thought she was just being caring. Looking back, I realized she was gathering data. About 6 months after the wedding, I started having odd symptoms. Nothing dramatic at first, just occasional dizziness when I stood up, some trouble sleeping, a general feeling of being slightly off. Vanessa was immediately concerned. She said it sounded like my blood pressure medication might need adjusting. She offered to check with a doctor at her practice. I was grateful for her help. She came back with a new prescription. Dr. Morrison reviewed your chart, she said. He thinks this will work better for you. I trusted her completely. Why wouldn't I? She was family and she worked in healthcare. The new medication made things worse. I started feeling foggy and confused. I'd forget why I walked into a room. I'd lose track of conversations mid-sentence. When I mentioned this to Vanessa, she looked worried. Mom, that's not the medication, she said gently. Those are cognitive symptoms. She said it could be early dementia. She said we should watch it carefully. I felt a bolt of cold fear. My mother had died with Alzheimer's. I'd watched her disappear bit by bit. The thought of that happening to me was terrifying. Vanessa suggested I start keeping a journal to track my symptoms. She gave me a little notebook with flowers on the cover. Write down when you feel confused, she said. Note what you were doing, what you were thinking about. It seemed thoughtful at the time. I started writing in it faithfully. The entries were depressing to read. Forgot dentist appointment. Couldn't remember neighbor's name. Put milk in the pantry instead of fridge. Vanessa would read through it when she visited. She'd nod slowly, making little humming sounds. One day she said, Mom, I think you should see a specialist. I can get you in with a neurologist. I agreed, feeling resigned and scared. The neurologist visit was strange. The doctor asked me questions that felt oddly specific. Had I ever felt people were talking about me? Did I ever feel unsafe in my own home? Had I experienced any paranoid thoughts? I said no to all of it, confused by the questions. He ordered some tests and said he'd be in touch. A week later, Vanessa called with the results. Everything looks normal on the scans, she said. But that doesn't mean there's nothing wrong. Sometimes these things don't show up on tests early on. The way she said it made me feel like I was failing something. Like I should be sicker, more definitively broken. Around this time, Marcus started acting different toward me. More careful, like I was fragile. He'd repeat himself slowly, as if I hadn't understood. One Sunday dinner at their house, I mentioned a news story. Marcus and Vanessa exchanged a look. That didn't actually happen, Mom, Vanessa said gently. I think you might be mixing up something you saw on TV. I was certain I'd read it in the newspaper that morning, but they were both so sure I was wrong. I started doubting my own memory. Was I losing my grip on reality? The symptoms got worse. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, heart pounding. I'd feel shaky and disoriented during the day. I couldn't focus on books I'd always loved. My handwriting started to look shaky and uncertain. I stopped seeing friends because I was ashamed. What if I said something crazy and didn't realize it? What if I forgot their names mid-conversation? Isolation crept in like fog. Vanessa was my main visitor now. She'd sit in my kitchen, scrolling through her phone. Just checking your prescriptions, she'd say, making sure everything's coordinated. She started bringing me vitamins and supplements. These will help with cognitive function, she promised. I took them all religiously. Anything to stop the slide I felt happening? One afternoon, Vanessa brought up the idea of me moving in with them. We have that whole finished basement, she said. You'd have your own space, but we'd be right there if you needed us. Something in me resisted. I loved my house. Robert and I had bought it 30 years ago. Every room held memories I wasn't ready to leave. I'm not ready for that, I said. Vanessa's smile tightened just slightly. Of course, she said. Just something to think about. But she brought it up again the next week. And the week after that, each time with more urgency. Mom, I worry about you here alone, she'd say. What if you fall? What if something happens? I started to feel like I was being selfish by staying, like I was putting them through unnecessary stress. The guilt was heavy and constant. Then came the incident that changed everything. Or rather, the incident that didn't happen. I got a call from Marcus one evening. He sounded upset. Mom, why did you call Vanessa at work 15 times today? I was baffled. I didn't call her at all today, I said. Mom, it's on her phone. 15 calls from your number. I checked my call log. Nothing. Not a single outgoing call to Vanessa. I told Marcus this, but I could hear the doubt in his voice. Okay, Mom, he said carefully. Maybe you don't remember making them. That night I couldn't sleep. Had I made those calls and forgotten? Was I losing time now? The next day, Vanessa came over looking concerned. Mom, we need to talk about yesterday, she said. She showed me her phone. 15 missed calls from my number. Some with voicemails that were just silence or breathing. I didn't make those calls, I insisted. She looked at me with such pity. I know you don't remember, she said softly. That's what scares me. I started to cry. She hugged me, and I felt small and broken. 2 weeks later, something similar happened. Marcus said I'd sent Vanessa a series of strange text messages. Rambling, paranoid messages about people watching me. I had no memory of sending them. When I checked my phone, the messages were there in my sent folder. I swear I didn't write them. The words didn't even sound like me. I started to wonder if I was going truly crazy. Maybe I was doing these things in some kind of fugue state. Maybe my mind was fracturing in ways I couldn't track. Vanessa suggested I see a psychiatrist, just to rule out any psychological component, she said. I went. The psychiatrist was kind but clinical. She asked similar questions to the neurologist. Did I feel people were against me? Did I feel unsafe? Did I have thoughts that others might find unusual? I tried to explain about the phone calls and texts I didn't remember. She made notes with a neutral expression. At the end, she prescribed an anti-anxiety medication. This should help with the paranoid ideation, she said. Paranoid ideation. The words stung. I filled the prescription because what else could I do? Everyone seemed to agree something was wrong with me. The medication made me drowsy and disconnected. I moved through days like I was underwater. Vanessa checked on me constantly. How are you feeling? Any strange thoughts? I started to hate the question. One Saturday, Vanessa stopped by with paint samples. I'm thinking we should paint the basement bedroom, she said. Something calming for you. What do you think of this blue? I hadn't agreed to move in yet. But she was already decorating my future room. I felt the walls closing in. That night, I had chest pains. Sharp, frightening pains that radiated down my left arm. I called Vanessa in a panic. Mom, calm down, she said. You're having a panic attack. This is part of the anxiety we've been talking about. Take one of your pills and lie down. I did, but the pain continued. After an hour, I called her back. I think I need to go to the ER, I said. I could hear the frustration in her voice. Mom, it's anxiety. The ER is for real emergencies. If you go, they're just going to tell you the same thing. I felt ashamed for overreacting. I took another pill and tried to breathe through it. The pain eventually faded. But something else was happening too. I started noticing small things that didn't add up. My pill bottles were running out faster than they should. I counted carefully I was taking the right doses. But somehow I needed refills earlier than expected. I found a coffee mug in my kitchen cabinet that wasn't mine. Plain white ceramic, nothing special. But I'd never seen it before. When I asked Vanessa about it, she looked confused. "Mom, that's been in your cabinet for years," she said. "It was a gift from the church fundraiser." Had it? I didn't remember it. But I didn't remember a lot of things anymore. One morning, I woke up feeling different. Clearer. The fog had lifted slightly. I'd run out of one of my medications and hadn't refilled it yet. Maybe that was why. I decided to wait a few days before refilling, see if the clarity continued. It did. Each day, my mind felt a little sharper. I started to notice more inconsistencies. My journal entries, the ones about my confusion, some of the handwriting didn't look quite like mine. Similar but slightly off. The slant was different. The pressure on the page, I compared them to my grocery lists, my checkbook entries. The handwriting wasn't exactly the same. I felt a cold suspicion forming. Had someone else been writing in my journal? But who? And why? The only person who had access was Vanessa. The thought was absurd. Why would she do such a thing? I pushed the suspicion away. This was exactly the kind of paranoid thinking they'd warned me about. But I couldn't completely let it go. I started paying more attention. The next time Vanessa visited, I watched her carefully. She made us coffee like she always did. While it brewed, she used my bathroom. I heard water running, the medicine cabinet opening. When she came back, she handed me my coffee. I pretended to drink it, but mostly just held it. After she left, I felt fine. Normally, after her visits, I'd feel foggy within an hour. The next time she visited, I did the same thing. Held my coffee, barely sipped it, dumped most of it down the sink when she wasn't looking. Again, no foggy feeling afterward. I started to test this systematically. When I drank the full cup she made, I felt terrible by evening. When I only pretended to drink it, I stayed clear. The pattern was undeniable. Something was in the coffee. The realization hit me like ice water. Vanessa was drugging me. My daughter-in-law, the one I'd welcomed like the daughter I never had, the one I'd trusted completely. She was poisoning me? But why? And how could I prove it? I couldn't go to Marcus with this. He'd think it was more paranoid delusion. I couldn't go to the police without evidence. They'd see my psychiatric records and dismiss me. I felt trapped. I needed to think carefully. I stopped taking all the medications Vanessa had arranged for me. I kept the bottles, made it look like I was still taking them, but I flushed the pills. Within a week, I felt like myself again. The real me, not the foggy, confused version I'd been living as. I started investigating. I called the pharmacy and asked about my prescriptions. The pharmacist mentioned several refills I didn't remember requesting. "Your daughter-in-law picked them up for you," she said cheerfully. I asked which medications specifically. Some of them I'd never even heard of. I looked them up online. They were antipsychotics, sedatives, medications that caused confusion. She'd been filling prescriptions I'd never agreed to, taking them herself to avoid suspicion or disposing of them, but documenting them as if I was taking them. I thought back to all those doctor visits. The neurologist who'd asked such specific questions about paranoia, the psychiatrist who'd seemed primed to diagnose me. Had Vanessa prepared them somehow, given them information before I even arrived? I needed to see my actual medical records. I requested them from my primary care doctor. When they arrived, I sat at my kitchen table and read through them. My hands were shaking. There were notes I'd never heard before. Reports from Vanessa about my increasingly erratic behavior. Documentation of phone calls where I'd allegedly been verbally abusive. Claims that I'd threatened to harm myself. None of it was true. None of it had happened. but it was all there in official medical documents. She'd been building a case, a paper trail showing me as unstable, incompetent, dangerous. But why? What did she want? The answer hit me that night. My house. The life insurance money from Robert. My retirement savings. Everything I had was in my name alone. If Marcus and I had a falling out, she'd get nothing. But if I was declared incompetent, if Marcus became my guardian, he'd control everything. And she controlled Marcus. I thought about the basement bedroom she was already decorating. Not for my comfort, for my confinement. I would have been moved into their house, medicated, isolated, documented as too unstable to manage my own affairs. Marcus would have been granted power of attorney. Eventually, conservatorship. Vanessa would have had access to everything. My stomach turned. This woman had sat in my kitchen for 2 years, had called me mom, had hugged me when I cried, all while systematically destroying my credibility and my health. I needed evidence. Real, concrete, undeniable evidence. I set up my old laptop in the kitchen with the camera running, hidden behind some cookbooks. The next time Vanessa visited, I made sure it was recording. She made coffee as usual. "I'll be right back," I said and went to the bathroom. Through the crack in the door, I watched her. She pulled a small bottle from her purse, added several drops to my coffee mug, stirred it carefully, set the spoon down exactly as it had been. I came back and accepted the coffee with a smile. "Thank you, sweetie," I said. My voice didn't shake. I was proud of that. We chatted about nothing for 20 minutes. She left, satisfied. I immediately saved the video file to a flash drive, copied it to the cloud, emailed it to myself. I wasn't going to lose this, but I still couldn't go to Marcus. Not yet. He loved her. He'd want to believe her explanations. He'd think the video was somehow faked or misunderstood. I needed more. I needed her caught in the act by someone with authority. I started thinking about the ER. If I went there with symptoms, and Vanessa was the one who'd set up my medical history, would they detain me? Would they put me under psychiatric observation based on her false reports? If they did, that would be proof. Proof that the system had been weaponized against me. And I'd have witnesses who could verify what happened. It was risky, but I couldn't see another way. I needed to document the full extent of what she'd done. I called Vanessa and told her I was feeling very confused again. Dizzy, disoriented, scared. "Mom, that's the anxiety," she said, but I could hear satisfaction in her voice. "Maybe you should go to the ER, just to be safe. Will you meet me there?" I asked. "Of course," she said. "I'll call ahead and let them know you're coming." That was exactly what I needed her to do. I prepared carefully. I brought my phone with the video evidence. I brought copies of my medical records showing the false reports. I brought documentation of all the prescriptions I'd never authorized. I put it all in a tote bag with my book and reading glasses. Just a little old lady going to the ER with her belongings. When I walked into the emergency room, I was calm. I told the intake nurse I was having dizziness and confusion. I mentioned that my daughter-in-law had called ahead. She was a PA, very concerned about me. The nurse nodded, already looking at notes on her screen. "Let's get you into a room," she said. Her voice had that specific, careful kindness. The kind you use with someone you think might be unstable. In the examination room, I waited. A doctor came in. He was young, professional, slightly wary. "Mrs. Patterson," he said. "I understand you've been having some concerning symptoms. Your daughter-in-law spoke with us. She's quite worried. She mentioned you've been experiencing paranoid thoughts, some confusion about reality." Here we go, I thought. "What did she tell you exactly?" I asked. He consulted his notes. "That you've been making accusations against family members, that you've been refusing medication, that you've expressed beliefs that people are trying to hurt you." I nodded slowly. "And based on those reports, what's your assessment?" I asked. "We'd like to keep you for observation," he said carefully. Just to make sure you're safe. There it was. The trap, sprung exactly as she'd designed it. I wasn't being admitted for my dizziness. I was being held because she'd prepped them to see me as mentally unstable. The nurse came in with paperwork. A psychiatric hold. 72 hours minimum. I could feel the walls closing in. This was the moment. Before I sign anything, I said, I need you to see something. I pulled out my phone. I'm going to show you a video. After you watch it, you can decide. The doctor looked uncomfortable. Mrs. Patterson, I don't think... Please, I said firmly. Just 3 minutes. That's all I ask. He sighed, but nodded. I pulled up the video of Vanessa drugging my coffee. The timestamp was clear. Her face was clear. The bottle, the careful drops, the stirring, all clear. I watched his expression change as he viewed it. What is she putting in your coffee? He asked quietly. I don't know, I said, but I'd like you to test the contents of my stomach. I drank coffee she made this morning before coming here. His jaw tightened. Wait here, he said. He left the room. I sat there in the paper gown, shaking slightly. Not from fear anymore. From rage. 2 years of my life. 2 years of thinking I was losing my mind. Of being isolated, drugged, gaslit, documented. All so she could take what was mine. The doctor came back with 2 other people. A senior physician and a hospital social worker. They asked to see the video again. They asked questions about my medical history, my medications. I showed them everything I'd brought. The fake journal entries, the unauthorized prescriptions, the medical reports full of lies. They looked at each other with tight faces. Mrs. Patterson, the senior physician said, we're going to run some tests, and we need to contact the police. Relief flooded through me. They believed me. The tests showed high levels of sedatives in my system. Medications I had no prescription for. Medications that would cause exactly the symptoms I'd been experiencing. The police came. I gave them copies of everything. The video, the medical records, the prescription history. They were professional and thorough. They asked about Vanessa's access to my home, my medications, my life. I told them everything. When Vanessa arrived at the ER, all concerned and helpful, they were waiting. I was in a different room by then, watching through a window. I saw her face when they told her they had evidence. Saw her try to explain, to charm, to deflect. Saw her realize it wasn't working. She asked to see me. They let her, with officers present. She stood in the doorway of my room. For just a second, the mask slipped. I saw cold fury in her eyes. You'll regret this, she said quietly. Marcus will never forgive you. His wife is being arrested because you're paranoid. I looked at her steadily. I have video of you drugging my coffee, I said. I have records of prescriptions you filled in my name. I have proof of every lie you told about me. The only thing I regret is not seeing you clearly sooner. She was arrested that night. The charges included elder abuse, fraud, and attempted conservatorship fraud. When they searched her phone and computer, they found more searches for how to prove someone has dementia, drafts of emails to attorneys about guardianship procedures, financial documents showing she'd been gambling online. She owed over $200,000 to various casinos. She'd needed my money desperately, and she'd been willing to destroy me to get it. Marcus came to see me the next day. His face was wrecked. Mom, he said and started crying. I held him while he sobbed. Part of me wanted to be angry at him. He'd believed her so easily, had looked at me with that pitying, careful concern, had thought his own mother was losing her mind. But he was a victim too. She'd manipulated him as thoroughly as she'd manipulated me, just in different ways. I'm so sorry, he kept saying. I should have known. I should have seen. She was very good at it, I said. That's what made it work. The legal process took months. Vanessa tried every defense, said I was vindictive, confused, making things up. But the evidence was overwhelming. The video, the toxicology reports. the digital trail of her research and planning. She eventually took a plea deal. 3 years in prison, restitution, permanent restraining order. It wasn't enough, not really. But it was something. Marcus divorced her while she was awaiting sentencing. He moved back to town, wanted to be closer to me. I told him I appreciated it, but I needed some space first. Some time to be sure of my own mind again, to remember who I was before all this. He understood. We have dinner every Sunday now. He's in therapy, working through his guilt and anger. I'm in therapy too, working through the betrayal. It's getting easier, but some nights I still wake up in a panic, checking my coffee before I drink it, reading my medical records to make sure nothing false has been added. The fear lives in my body now, even though my mind knows I'm safe. Here's what I learned from all of this. Trust is beautiful, but it shouldn't be blind. When people show you who they are through small actions, believe them. Especially if they're family. The coffee that tastes slightly bitter. The journal entries that don't look quite right. The medical appointments you don't remember scheduling. Those aren't signs you're crazy. Sometimes they're signs someone wants you to think you are. And if you ever find yourself in a situation where everyone seems to agree you're the problem, where the whole world seems calibrated to confirm you're losing your grip, document everything. Trust your gut. Find one person who'll listen without the preset narrative. Because sometimes the system can be weaponized by someone on the inside. Sometimes the helper is the predator. Sometimes the trap is disguised as care. I got lucky. I caught her on video. I had enough clarity to fight back. Not everyone does. I think about the other women who might not have been so lucky, who ended up in conservatorships they didn't need, who were medicated into compliance, who lost their autonomy because someone with medical credentials abused the system's trust. It could have been me. It almost was me. These days, I live alone, happily. I have a new doctor who I chose myself. I have friends who check on me because they care, not because they're documenting. I have my house, my savings, my life back, and I have something else too. A fierce protectiveness over my own reality. Nobody gets to tell me what I experienced anymore. Nobody gets to rewrite my story. I know what happened. I have proof, and I survived it. Marcus asked me recently if I could ever trust anyone again. I thought about it for a long time. Yes, I finally said, but differently now. I'll trust people who show up without an agenda, who don't need to control the narrative, who can let me be competent and flawed and fully myself. He nodded. We sat together in comfortable silence. My son, who was fooled but who came back. My life, which was almost stolen but which I reclaimed. My future, which is entirely my own again. If you're listening to this and something in it resonates, pay attention to that feeling. You're not crazy. You're not paranoid. And you're not alone. Sometimes the people who are supposed to care for you have other plans. And sometimes the only way out is to document the truth and show it to someone who'll actually see it. I hope you never need that knowledge. But if you do, I hope you remember it. And I hope you fight like hell for your own reality. Because you deserve to live in a world that believes you. Especially when someone's working very hard to make sure nobody does.